The Restaurant Association of South Africa has announced its intention to take government to court over its decision to ban the sale of alcohol. Last month, President Cyril Ramaphosa announced that under the current restrictions, the sale and transportation of alcohol are prohibited. The move was due to the increasing number of alcohol trauma-related cases that hospitals faced, while also attending to an influx of COVID-19 patients. For more on the story, we're now joined on the line by RASA CEO Wendy. We haven't spoken to you this year. Compliments of the new season to you.
Thank you so much, and to you and everybody that's working there as well. I hope it's a good year for us all.
Are you not satisfied with government's reasoning behind the alcohol ban?
Look, we obviously are taking the government to court. We are doing it in association with major stakeholders of the industry. It's a combination application with many various aspects to it. We can't, unfortunately, discuss the contents of that case until the papers are in on Tuesday. But it's imperative that we do what we can do to save the industry. Yeah. And if anybody just stops for a brief moment and walks down any restaurant node or restaurant street or restaurant boulevard or environment, you'll see that it is certainly a ghost town, and our restaurants have really taken a beating through this last level of lockdown.
Yeah. President Ramaphosa saying the alcohol ban was due to the increasing number of alcohol trauma-related cases. Why would you then want alcohol to be sold during these critical times?
There are many aspects that need to be unpacked, and discussions need to be had with government as to the factuality of their statistics, as well as documents that they claim to present in view of what is important for us as the restaurant sector. And the way that our businesses are modelled at this point in time doesn't allow us to trade effectively. The curfew also has had a very negative impact. 60 to 80% of our trade comes from dinner time trade. Without a proper curfew, we can't even serve dinner. So our businesses really are trying to trade at a 20% maximum capacity, at a 50% restriction on capacity, with absolutely no profitability matrix on alcohol. It's virtually impossible for any restaurant to be able to survive itself. And the unfortunate thing is we are not coffee shops. We are sit-down restaurants. We are experiential restaurants. We're not in a position at this point in time to offer a premium experience for people who come into our establishments and are paying a high degree of money to come and eat and enjoy themselves in an environment that is very clinical.
Yeah. Have you put any proposals to government to present what you feel is a viable solution?
You know, pre the festive season, we certainly were in engagement, and we had discussions that the numbers needed to be controlled. We've been speaking about the illicit trade for months on end. The illicit trade continues while legal businesses get punished. And these are continued conversations that we need to have with government in ways where we balance lives and livelihoods. We are in full support to bring down the curve. We're in full support to adhere to the protocols and regulations. But in return, government also needs to work with us in a way where we save jobs. You know, there is massive pressure on the economy at this point in time. There was no announcement of TERS. We need to keep our people employed. We need to keep our businesses open. And we cannot do it without proper consultation and a coherent relationship where we work together with government in saving our businesses, saving those jobs in our business. There are also lives and livelihoods who are at stake at this point in time. And if we don't have proper collaboration, we don't have a workable relationship, we're not going to find the solutions we need to move long past the next couple of months in this space.
Yeah. The president has said in an interview yesterday, actually, that he was in consultation with different stakeholders about looking at the ban not necessarily being a blanket ban, but there being different concessions for different environments and consequences, like for restaurants, for argument's sake. Are you part of this conversation?
No, we haven't been party to that conversation or that consultation. And these are imperative that we open these levels of conversation, that we can actually, as our industry, be able to talk for our industry. You know, you can't take a blanket approach. Yeah. Our perspective on what happens within a restaurant environment is very different to what happens outside with off-con alcohol. People come into an establishment, we are custodians of liquor licenses. There is a system where people can report us on those liquor licenses. We stand to lose a liquor license if we don't control the behaviour that happens within the restaurant. Yeah. The outside behaviour and the societal issues is something that government needs to work with, and the mobilisation of that behaviour for, you know, the extreme alcohol abuse is not fair to be putting it onerous on the restaurants or to be making us take the brunt for it. You need to allow us to trade. We are able to responsibly administer alcohol. We are able to administer people's behaviour. We have the right of admission sign, and we are custodians of liquor licenses. We pay huge amounts of money for which, the government hasn't even once for one moment stopped and said, you've traded for 3 months this year with liquor. There's a rebate on your liquor license. Or the landlords don't have to charge you rent. Or the banks can hold close on your loans. Business as usual for us without income. The debt is mounting. We have to pay the debt. We have to pay the rent. We have to pay the loans. And there's absolutely no support from anybody, any of the outside stakeholders, the affiliates that work with us to try and save the industry. And that is why I think we've got to this position where we are certainly in desperate measures to try and keep our doors open. The courts have ruled that the insurance companies need to pay out our insurances, and we're still sitting in a circus with them. They're still not doing what they need to do ethically to deliver on the court order that was granted against them, and there's still tons of excuses not to pay it out. We're sitting in a very tricky relationship with the landlords. You can well imagine the pressure on the back end. We've made promises to have used the festive season to have accumulated income and profitability to try and pay back some of our debt to survive this first quarter. It's always the hardest time in a restaurant, January to April, when we hold out for the Easter holidays. Now we've got absolutely no cash flow. There are no reserves. There's no banks that have offered lending. And there's no relief from the landlords because they also need to collect their income in order to be able to pay for, to keep their buildings and their businesses afloat.
Yeah.
We're constantly in this cycle of complete and utter desperation, and it's time our government actually collaborates with us. They want us closed, compensate us, and we're calling for that compensation, and each restaurant that is closed needs to be reopened.
Are your members still required to pay on their licenses?
We're still required to pay on all our licenses. We've got SAMRO, SAMPRA, TV licenses, we've got health licenses, safety licenses, we've got the liquor licenses. We still have to pay for our renewals of these liquor licenses, and we're not even able to trade. There's no extensions on the licenses that we've tried to get applications for on and off consent. But, when it comes to a blanket approach, they're quite happy to transform our licenses and say, right, you can all become bottle stores. But when we say work with us through the spaces and time of evolution for us to be able to recuperate some of the debt that we've got to pay back because you can't afford to support the industry, there's no collaboration that is taking place with any one of the ministerial divisions. The only support that we get is always from the Minister of Tourism. And many of the mandate doesn't house within her sector. Many of it sits with Minister Patel, or Minister McKeezy, or Minister Zuma, and it makes it complex for us to be able to move forward in having functional, structured, coherent consultations where we can sit down and we can engage and we can bring experts and we can bring our statistics and we can bring our factual information that we've got. To resort to court is the last resort. But if the lines of communication are not open, we have no other option but to do that.
Yeah. So just give us a sense in terms of demand and people coming to restaurants. Have people been feeling that, government is right on this, or have people been wanting, has there been demand for liquor?
I think overall there's a demand for liquor, and I think overall outside of the restaurant sector, everybody's demanding that liquor be brought back in a responsible, controlled way. And those are conversations that need to be continued. We can't keep every month when the numbers rise, restrict, cause job losses. And then if we look at currently what's happening across the economy in South Africa, it's dramatic. And, we are major contributors to the tax bracket. We're major contributors to the GDP. And we can't keep culling jobs. We cannot keep allowing people, because they're vulnerable, to lose their jobs. These people have worked in our industry. They've been loyal. They're passionate. They're beautiful human beings who are a part of our extended families in every single restaurant that you encounter. And any person that visits a restaurant will know that the restaurant is made up of these beautiful people. Now, because they're the vulnerable people, they've just been put on unpaid layoffs because government can't support them. There's no mention of TERS. So if we can't keep our businesses afloat by having these functional, structured relationships, and we can't even serve a dinner time trade, yes, the conversation on an ongoing basis is, guys, you need to get liquor back into your business. Guys, you need to get the curfew extended. We can't come into your establishment and enjoy the experience of a fine dining course meal when we've got to be pushed out of your restaurant at 8 o'clock and we've got to meet curfew at 9 o'clock. So we had a double whammy. One, you've taken alcohol away from us, and then you drop the curfew. So it's a killer on both sides of the business without proper consultation. Not one person sat down and said, if we take alcohol away, what is the relativity of profitability of your businesses in the business model that you've got in relation to alcohol. If we did this, how many jobs stand to be lost? What is an alternative solution? That conversation doesn't take place. And on the same side of curfew, at no point in time did they say, look, we've taken alcohol out. What is the ramification in the restaurant industry? Can they actually close at 8 o'clock? Can they close a restaurant within an hour? Can their staff get home by curfew? It is operationally impossible. And if there was anybody who had a sincere, invested, honest interest in the restaurant industry, anybody in government, I invite them to call me to stand true to this industry and open these lines of communication. So we don't have to go to court to have these conversations. These conversations should be taking place with us on a day-to-day basis. And if it's not COVID-related, then involve us and let us help you to mobilize plans and support you on plans and interventions that can mobilize the behavior of alcohol in this country.
Another related story that broke this week with a company that's also taking government to court, SABC, saying it's withdrawing investment in some initiatives, some investment initiatives in the country. How are you engaging with this conversation?
Look, I think the entire industry is very, very fragile at the moment, very vulnerable, we're at high risk, and I think that the entire industry is going to do what they need to do to save the industry, to save jobs, to save the restaurant sector, to save their businesses. SABC need to do what they need to do in terms of saving what they believe is right and factual, and I'm sure that they have got a ton of experts and statistics that they can also bring to the forefront, which will benefit everybody in the prolonged running to try and lift the alcohol ban. And I think that at the end of the day, we need to be realistic about saving lives and livelihoods. If all these people are unemployed, the government is not in a position to support them, we are not in a position to support them, they become lives that are also at high risk. So where is the line between saving lives and livelihoods?
Yeah, the President repeated that yesterday in that interview about saving lives and livelihoods, of course, different impacts. But Wendy, thanks again for talking to us.
Thank you.
That was Restaurant Association of South Africa's Wendy Alberts.